Hi, this is John Harcher, and welcome to episode 2 of Left Turn at Albuquerque. Today we'll be taking a look at the first major Blu-ray release of Looney Tunes shorts, Platinum Collection Volume 1. It was meant to be an upgrade from the Golden Collections. Most of this was by default the Double Dip. But was the upgrade from the Golden Collections worth it?
I knew I should have made a left turn at Albuquerque. I knew I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque. I knew I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque. I should have turned left at Albuquerque.
Before we move on, a bit of inside baseball from episode 1. I didn't mention that Hip Hip Hurry was originally in syndication. Well, actually I did, but I ended up removing the reference. There are 2 Runner Coyote cartoon shorts in the John Seeley 6. I mixed up which one had the Dennis the Menace music, so I just cut it out. We'll get to that one eventually. I also left out mentioning the single most important Looney Tunes voice actor outside of Mel Blanc. We will definitely remedy that with this episode. With the advent of Blu-ray, you knew the Looney Tunes collection was coming at some point. The question was always going to be, what form would it take? That was answered on November 15th, 2011 with the Platinum Collection Volume 1. 50 cartoons with boatloads of extras scattered over 3 discs. The majority of the tunes included were on the Golden Collections, 39 of them in all, 26 from the first 2 volumes alone. So like last time with Collector's Choice, I'll go over the plots, chronology, and creative forces behind them. Eventually, when we go back to the Golden Collections, we can just briefly go over the cartoons, even though they actually came out first. Also, like we did last time, I'll look at the shorts technically, at the restoration work, or specifically how it looks in high def. I'm honestly not sure how detailed the work was on individual shorts, whether each frame was completely cleaned up or just spruced up. My reaction may not be a gauge of the actual work, but what I think was done or should have been done. And it turns out there are various levels of how things look that don't go by chronology. You can get a short from the early 40s looking better than one from the 50s. It may also be that things that were cleaned up on DVD, the flaws get revealed on Blu-ray. That's the downside of high def. So the first disc has cartoons by the major characters who were stars of their own series. Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, Tweety Sylvester, Runner Coyote, Foghorn Leghorn, Pepe Le Pew, and Speedy Gonzales. It also has the commentaries, alternate tracks, and documentaries from the related tunes from the earlier collections. First up is Hare Tonic. It's puzzling as to why this one starts off the collection. It's a Chuck Jones, Ted Pierce short that's also on Golden Collection Volume 3. It's from 1945, late in Jones's what I call experimental period. We'll deal with that as we see the other shorts along the way. Elmer buys Bugs only to discover he may have rabbititis. It took me until this release to finally get the
And a guy back there in the 17th row with a cute tomato.
it's a guy with a hot chick. I always wondered what somebody was doing eating a tomato in the theater. Anyway, this was on Channel 5 since I was a little kid. As far as the restoration, colors are muted, which is probably how it was intended. It's clean, but the original cells and plastic covers has so many dots and scratches on them that if they were completely cleaned up, the entire cartoon would look different. To be honest, if they were going to do a Chuck Jones experimental period one, I wish they would have given us the digital debut of Hold the Line Please. That would show up eventually. They probably should have started with this one from 1 year later, Baseball Bugs, the very first tune from the first DVD volume. Bugs steps in for the Tea House Toddlers against the Gas House Gorillas. Friz Freeling, Michael Maltese, and Ted Pierce, who does the voices of the Gas House Gorillas, come up with a bunch of great sight gags in this one. Including a memorable ending with the Statue of Liberty, done by B. Benaderet.
That's what the man said. You heard what he said. He said that.
This one was on all the time when I was a kid. The colors on this are a little brighter in this one. Frizz's tunes from this era generally were. Spots and scratches have been more cleaned up compared to the previous one, but they're still there from time to time. Next is Buccaneer Bunny. I suppose if you had to pick one with Sam, this one from 1948 that was done by the same trio as the last one and appears on Golden Collection Volume 5 is as good as any other. I'm guessing the earlier Western ones with Sam need a little bit more work. Seagoing Sam the pirate tries to bury his treasure, but Bugs is right there causing trouble. Once again, Frizz, Mike, and Ted get great sight gags going, including the shifting cannon doors and running up and down the stairs. One of my favorite gags has Sam swimming out to the boat just to get the oars, then swimming all the way back to row the boat back. Now, this is one of the very first cartoons that I can remember watching back when I was living in Wallington when I was like 3, 4, 5, that young. Restoration on this one is spectacular with vibrant colors and heavily cleaned up without changing the integrity of the cartoon of itself. And I know it was always there, but thanks to how cleaned up this was, you can clearly see the name of Sam's ship, the Marie Deuce, or Sweet Mary. The Old Grey Hare follows. It's sort of the same process here. If you had to find a Bugs Bunny done by Bob Clampett, this is a great example, which also happens to be from Volume 5. This classic from 1944 was written by Michael Sassonoff and Warren Foster. It has Elmer Fudd seeing what he and Bugs would be like in the year 2000. Boy, did they really get the year right, you know? They got it down pat, right down to the ray guns and everything. How did they know? The great thing about this one is you get to see the 3 stages of Bugs and Elmer from old age to when they were little babies. Technically, you don't see Bugs as his normal self, do you? Yeah. Anyway. Now, interestingly, though this was done a year earlier than Hare Tonic, it looks fresher. Spots and scratches have been mostly taken care of, though you can see the reflection of the glass as the years pop up. The one odd thing is if you listen to Greg Fort's commentary track, the cartoon is out of sync with the picture. So, I don't know if you could fix that. Now, this is another one that was also in syndication from the time I was a little kid. The next 4 tunes are all by Chuck Jones, and these next 2 were originally on Golden Collection Volume 4. First is Rabbit Hood from 1949. As the name implies, Bugs stumbles into the world of the Merry Men, but doesn't meet Robin until the end of the short. Jones and Maltese go all out with the sight gags and verbal mastery.
Sheriff, John.
John, hello.
John, Sheriff. Sherry, Nutty. Nutty, Sheriff. S-A-N, L-J. L-J, S-A-N. Arise, sirloin of beef. Arise, Earl of Cloves. Arise, Duke of Brittingham. Arise, Baron of Munchausen. Arise, Essence of Myrrh. Duke of Magnesia, Quarter of 10.
Plus, a cameo at the end by Errol Flynn.
Welcome to Sherwood.
This one was in syndication since I was like 4 or 5. I remember watching it all the time. There are really vibrant colors here, as you'd expect with all the green, and many of the cell flaws that weren't cleaned up just blend into the forest. As far as the colors go, the S of N LJ scene is particularly good. The wall is practically 3-dimensional. Its textures are great. Even the scene from The Adventures of Robin Hood looks terrific. Speaking of, this short also appeared on the 2-disc collection for that film as an extra, along with another film that's on this set. The other second appearance short is 8-Ball Bunny from 1950. This ended up on the deluxe edition of the Treasure of Sierra Madre, owing to the Bogart Dobbs cameo with another line Bogey never actually said.
Pardon me, but could you help out a fellow American who's down on his luck?
By the way, Dave Barry did Bogart. A penguin is left behind by his ice show, so Bugs undertakes the journey to bring him home, except there's a twist. It's a sort of a mini epic with a fun little guitar ditty by Michael Maltese.
Bugs Bunny came to Martinique. When he arrived, he was pretty weak. His knees looked like they would buckle in. His tribulations caused by a penguin.
In later years, this one was cut when Bugs and the Penguin are captured by South American natives, but it wasn't when I was a kid. Colors here are mixed between muted and vibrant. I saw a lot more dots and scratches on this one, but mostly in the background. The train door has some pretty bad debris, just inherent in the animation process. And when I got this, it's another thing with Blu-ray, you just kind of notice different things. I saw in the background when the penguin is building the boat, There's a silhouette of Bugs playing the guitar up by the tree. Next up is Rabbit of Seville. This was on Golden Collection Volume 1. It's Jones and Maltese again from 1950. Bugs and Elmer take their battle onto the stage as the music from the famous opera plays in the background. This was a Saturday morning staple and sort of a prelude to the next cartoon. Colors are clear but not necessarily bright. There are a few cell flaws that pop up from time to time along the bottom and a white spot off to the side during the finale. The last Bugs Bunny on the disc is What's Opera Doc? What else is there to say about this 1957 classic? Bugs and Elmer, set to Wagner, by Jones and Maltese. Should have been a Golden Collection Volume 1. It wasn't Volume 2, probably just to hold out to have something to make people go buy it. It's one of the landmark cartoons in film history, yet another notch in Chuck Jones's belt. It's also another one that highlights the spectacular background work of Maurice Noble. It's so important, it gets 2 commentary tracks and a vocal-only track. It also happens to be one of my Uncle Andy's favorite cartoons. He'd pull out the "Kill the Wabbit, kill the Wabbit, kill the Wabbit" at the drop of a dime. Now when it short starts, it doesn't look any different from how it was seen on network TV. Then it zooms down on Elmer. His armor has spectacular texture and the background is practically glowing. The colors on the fat horse in the middle pop out as well. And the colors at the end when Elmer calls down the lightning, just wow. Great restoration of a great cartoon. Now, like I said, I really think this should have been on the Golden Collection Volume 1, but it's here on this set. This is also a highlight in the career of Arthur Q. Bryant. He was able to not only sing beautifully, but to do so as Elmer. Oh, Brunhilde, you're so far away. Mel does pitch in with one line, Smug! But he so respected Bryant's work as Elmer, he only did him once on the Golden Era, we'll get to that in a minute, and wouldn't do his voice again after Bryant passed away until many years later. Now, just to show the difference between restored and non-restored on the making of documentary, it was originally on Volume 2 and is included on this disc. They show a clip of Hare Meets Hare, which includes the first of Bugs dressing as Brunhilde. It looks as bad as any tune you saw back on TV in the 70s in syndication. Just looked terrible. Even the snippets of What's Opera Doc are lower quality as well if you need a comparison. So you could use the documentary and say, okay, this is what it looks like restored, this is what it looks like non-restored. Now these last 2 tunes, Rabbit of Seville and What's Opera Doc, make up part of Jones's own opera cycle. Wagner has his Ring, Jones has his own. We'll talk about it more when we get to Platinum Collection Volume 2 and the first tune in the quartet. We move on to the Daffy Duck section of the disc, starting off with the Great Piggy Bank Robbery from 1946, which was originally on Golden Collection Volume 2. This is simply one of Bob Clampett's greatest works, a whirlwind of imagination, aided and abetted by Warren Foster's writing. Daffy dreams he's a great detective in search of all the lost piggy banks in the world. When he finds them, he encounters a Dick Tracy-like cadre of villains. Now, if you're into the commentary tracks, John Kay's one is terrific in pointing out some of the most bizarre single drawings you could possibly imagine. That's what the frame-by-frame button is for. You sit there and you just go frame by frame, and these weird things make up this classic. Now, I don't remember seeing this on TV until the TBS days. For the most part, it looks pretty cleaned up, but every now and then, there's a splash of color that jumps right off the screen. There's a sky at dusk shot towards the beginning that just looks amazing. I didn't really see any spots on this until the end with the piggy banks. Next is A Pest in the House, a Minor Jones, Maltese, and Pierce classic from 1947, originally in Golden Collection Volume 5. A very tired businessman, voiced by Arthur Q. Bryant, tries to get some sleep in Elmer's hotel, but bellboy Daffy just can't help waking him up. This is quintessential middle period Chuck Jones. It's kind of the end of the experimental period. This one was played a lot when I was growing up. Might have been on Channel 5, but definitely all the time on TBS. Surprisingly, Elmer getting punched in the nose incessantly was never cut out. The hotel is full of blues and purples that jump right out at you. Then you get to the yellow room and you can see the lines being drawn on the bed as the guy tries to sleep. It's interesting to watch. There's a couple of stray spots and smudges here or there, but it's not too bad for 1947. Next short is the Scarlet Pumpernickel, a Saturday morning staple from 1950 in Golden Collection Volume 1. Daffy reads his epic about the colonial hero to a skeptical film executive, where Daffy, Porky, and Sylvester play out the story. A terrific lampoon of swashbucklers, as well as the movie-making business by Chuck's crew, Michael Maltese writing, of course. There are inside jokes galore, along with a huge number of characters making appearances. In fact, this is one of the few, if not the only, classic-era Looney Tunes shorts where Mel Blanc does Elmer Fudd. He does one line, so they didn't want to drag Arthur Q. Bryant all the way in just for that. Appropriately, the colors in the Hollywood section are subdued, while the story itself has bolder ones. Spots have been kept mostly to the dark backgrounds. And yes, in later times, the ending was cut for television. I think they were being a little too sensitive, but it is kind of dark when you think about it. Next up is Duck, A Muck, also from Golden Collection Volume 1. Daffy runs out of backgrounds and is harassed by a phantom artist as he's just trying to star in his cartoon. This 1953 classic is one of Chuck Jones's all-time greats, a sort of extension of the Clampett absurdism from his days at the studio. Maltese was aided on the script, this time out by animator Ben Washam. You'd never think the final cameo would have been such a problem, but it nearly sunk the cartoon when the suits didn't understand why it was necessary. Because it's the punchline to the cartoon, that's why.
Ain't I a stinker?
There's one other thing. This was a network staple back in the day, so you never saw the opening credits until it came out on DVDs like this, and Blu-rays, of course. You look at the opening credits, and it gives you absolutely no idea about the chaos to follow. Now, this tune has always been relatively clean, since it's mostly shot on white, but it looks pretty good overall in the sections with the color, like with the Daffy with the weird flower hair and everything. Next is Robin Hood Daffy from 1958 in Golden Collection Volume 3. This was actually its second appearance on a Warner re-release. It was the other short on the Adventures of Robin Hood set. Daffy tries to convince Friar Porky he's the real Robin Hood, but just can't rob from the rich to give to the poor. This is another Jones Maltese classic that only needs one line to describe it.
Yoinks and away! Yoinks and away! Yoinks and away! Yoinks and away!
They must have really loved a lot of these Daffy Duck cartoons on the networks. This was another staple that was on CBS, on ABC, just all the time. The bright colors on this one are an early highlight. It's very clean as well, nary a spot to be seen. We move into the Porky Pig section of the disc with another Porky and Daffy team-up, Baby Bottleneck. This is a Bob Clampett classic from 1946 and Golden Collection Volume 2 with Warren Foster writing. Porky and Daffy work at the baby factory to help the stork streamline his operation to the point where Daffy has to hatch an egg. Now this one contains quite possibly the single best use of Raymond Scott's Powerhouse in all of the dozens of times it was used in the Warner's cartoons. Now, even though his name is closely associated with Looney Tunes music, Carl Stalling didn't write all of it for the cartoons, but part of his genius was adding in what other pieces of music would work well in the short. Now, I'm not sure I remember this on Channel 5, but I definitely remember it on TBS. As far as the restoration goes, if you watch the opening credits, you can see the uneven exposure. It's a little rough. Primary colors are crisp on this one. Since it's older, there are a lot more flaws inherent in the animation, since they reuse those cells over and over again. But as before, the main action is clean. The backgrounds are the ones that have the flaws. We get more Clamp It madness from 1946 and Golden Collection Volume 2 in the form of Kitty Kornered. Bob actually wrote and directed this one. Porky is trying to put his cats, including Sylvester, out for the night, but he's the one that ends up getting put out. It ends with an invasion from Mars, of all things. I don't remember this one at all until the Cartoon Network days. This was Sylvester's third appearance. I thought Catch as Catch Can was early, but it was actually, that one was like his seventh appearance. He was actually quite a busy cat. This time, interestingly enough, he has a black nose. As far as the restoration, wow, colors on this one are amazing. They just leap off the screen. The Martians towards the end are particularly striking. The backgrounds have an occasional spot on it, but otherwise this one's as clean as they come. Next up is Scaredy Cat from 1948 in Golden Collection Volume 1. Porky and Sylvester spend the night in an old house where the mice are in charge. The problem is getting Porky to believe that there's something wrong. Sylvester remains silent throughout this one when he has every chance to scream his head off. There's some tough stuff in here from Chuck, Mike, and the gang. However, it was on pretty regularly in syndication. Now, oddly enough, Chuck didn't work with Sylvester all that much. However, this cartoon was the first time he was actually given that name. Colors are subdued, yet bright, particularly in the primary colors. There's quite a lot of cell spots throughout the picture, which show up more since it takes place mostly in the dark. Frankly, I wish they'd take another pass at it to clean up more, but I guess some things inherent in the picture you just can't get rid of without completely altering its integrity. It looks like what it is, a very nice copy of a 1948 cartoon. Just wish it could have looked a little better. Next up is Porky Chops. Okay, let me be honest, what's this doing on here? It's a fairly nondescript Porky Pig cartoon released in 1949. It's also on Golden Collection Volume 1, directed by Arthur Davis and written by Lloyd Turner and Bill Scott. Porky the Lumberjack battles a squirrel while trying to chop down a tree. It's pretty standard fare. I honestly don't remember seeing this one a lot. I'd have preferred something like Wearing of the Grin instead, which is mentioned by Eric Goldberg in the previous commentary track as being a highlight of Porky. The only thing I can imagine them using it is because it's absolutely crystal clear. There's just a few scratches on the tree at one point. The last Porky on the disc is Old Glory from Golden Collection Volume 2. Student Porky has to learn about the flag and gets a history lesson from Uncle Sam himself in this one, where Chuck Jones was deep in the middle of his Disney phase in that golden year of Hollywood, 1939. A 9-minute epic with 3 writers, including Dave Monahan. It was specially painted and rotoscoped to achieve its distinctive look. It actually got quite a lot of play on TBS. I have to say this one just looks spectacular. Colors look freshly painted. They actually used brand new cells on it. That's how important it was to them, so there's less spot problems. The worst one is the pan up of the Abe Lincoln statue. I wish they could have found the original title card rather than the blue ribbon one. They did find the original ending at one point. Unfortunately, it's probably lost in the mists of time, or somewhere in the Warner's vault. George, take another look for it. Next up, we have a couple of Tweety debuts here. First is A Tale of Two Kitties from 1942, originally on Golden Collection Volume 5. You know, they actually have quite a number on this set. This was directed by Bob Clampett and written by Warren Foster. Tweety is introduced
I thought I tore a putty cat.
as the foil to the Abbott and Costello of the cat community. You see, they started out as cats and then tailed 2 mice from the collector's choice, had them as mice. Clampett actually based the original Tweety drawing on his own baby picture. As far as the restoration goes, the blacks on the kitty Abbott and Costello are pretty deep. The other colors are mostly secondary rather than primary, so it was an interesting choice. Very few spot or scratch problems until the end when it gets a little darker. Don't remember this one until TBS when it's on pretty much all the time.
Turn out those lights!
The next one is Tweety Pie from Golden Collection Volume 2. Friz Freleng directed Blue Ribbon one, so we go to IMDb and Pearson Maltese on script. Tweety and Sylvester team up for the first time, though the cat's called here. Very similar to a Friz directed one that he did with Bugs Bunny called Hare Force, where the dog was named Sylvester. Friz just liked to reuse things over and over again. Now, this 1947 tune ended up winning the Oscar, a first for Warner's and first of several for Friz. Now, restorers, what is that hair doing at the bottom of the frame almost the whole thing? Couldn't we have gotten rid of that? Otherwise, very bright colors and clear black and whites, so it looks really good. Next up, we have a couple of Roadrunner Coyote cartoons. First is Fast and Furry-ous. This is originally from Golden Collection Volume 1. This is the very first Roadrunner Coyote cartoon released in 1949. As we noted last time, all of these were directed by Chuck Jones and written by Michael Maltese, and Paul Julian does the beep beep of the Roadrunner. And like last time, we'll just list out what the Coyote does to get the Roadrunner. Coyote tries to catch him with a knife and fork but can't catch him. Tries to catch him with a lid top but gets slammed himself. Tries a boomerang, which obviously comes right back at him. Makes a fake school crossing without realizing Roadrunners can't read. Uses a rocket that goes straight up into a cliff. Tries pulling a little stone out the top of a big stone that falls on top of him. Paints a tunnel on the side of a rock that the Roadrunner goes right through, but he can't. He burns dynamite in the road, but the plunger explodes. Wears a super outfit, but can't fly. Takes a refrigerator to help create snow for skis, but goes right off a cliff. Wears jet-propelled tennis shoes to race through a cloverleaf, but they run out of gas. Uses axe, but gets run over by a bus. I think I remember this one from syndication. As far as restoration, boy, for taking place in the desert, there's a lot of green in this cartoon. The sky looks almost real with the thin clouds and all. I didn't see any cell debris at all. The second one is Beep Beep. This one was on Golden Collection Volume 2. Again, Jones and Maltese, released in 1952. Coyote tries knife and fork again, but they end up getting stuck in the road. Has boxing glove on a spring, but rock flies backward. Steps on wire with anvil, falls to ground, drops anvil, and shoots into the sky with a bad parachute. Tries free drink of water with TNT, but remember, Roadrunners can't read. The two enter a mine and put on helmet lights. Coyote lights match in a cave with dynamite. Cuts rope on board with spring and ends up flying into the ground. Tries to ride a rocket cycle and shoots into the sky. Rocket-powered roller skates send Coyote all over the desert. After his ordeal, he takes the free drink of water and the box explodes. Coyote makes fake railroad crossing and gets run over by a train. Again, I think I remember this one from syndication. This one has more rocks in it, and the texture on them looks really amazing. There's a little more cell marks on this one, but the latter half is like crystal clear. The two tunes open so similarly, you think for a minute you're watching the same one. Nope, they're different. That became the challenge as they went along, how to make this different, as we need to make more and more of these, and they ended up doing a pretty good job. The last three cartoons on the disc have one each from the other three leads of the main series that Warner Brothers did with their other characters. First is Lovelorn Leghorn from 1951. Miss Prissy tries to find herself a husband with rolling pin in hand. To save himself, Foghorn convinces her that Barnyard Dog is a rooster in hiding. Then the dog convinces her to build a rooster trap, and Foghorn ends up helping. Like all the Foghorn Leghorns, it's a Bob McKimson, this one written by Ted Pierce. I don't ever remember seeing this on TV at all. You know, maybe it's a little violent, but not that much. Colors are basically fine. Overall, the picture's clean. And it's a little filmy at times. Now this is another one that could have been on that Foghorn Leghorn Superstars disc instead of the Broken Leghorn Double Dip. Technically, it has appeared on DVD previously as an extra to the Doris Day film I'll See You in My Dreams. So it did need to be on a Looney Tunes collection at some point. I probably would have preferred the first one, the Foghorn Leghorn, but they did what they did. Next is for Scent-imental Reasons from Golden Collection Volume 1, as well as the Pepe Le Pew Superstars DVD. In this 1949 short, Jones and Maltese have Pepe invading a perfume store, and a cat, Penelope Pussycat in her first appearance, is sent in to get him out, but in the end the tables are turned. This starts out as a fairly normal Pepe Le Pew cartoon, but there's a couple of things later on that lift it into Oscar-winning territory. It was the second Looney Tune to win an Oscar after Tweety Pie. Now, I remember this one being on the ABC Saturday morning show a lot. It was almost like every other week it was on. For the restoration, colors are bright but subdued. There's a lot of light greens in it. Overall, very clean, not too many spots. Finally, we have Speedy Gonzales, also from Golden Collection Volume 1. This 1955 release is the first time with the Speedy Gonzales we all know, sombrero and all, thanks to Frizz and Warren Foster. Sylvester guards the cheese factory from the mice, who call on Speedy to get some for them. I guess it was different enough from what came before it to get the Oscar in 1955. They then beat that formula into the ground. I'm pretty sure I remember this one from the network days, both CBS and ABC. Colors are crisp. You could almost see the granules in the desert. It's really clean for the most part. Overall, for disc one, they're interesting choices. Bugs and Daffy get some fairly essential tunes collected, and the Roadrunner, Pepe Le Pew, and Speedy Gonzales ones are quintessentially representative. The two for Tweety and Sylvester are good, but more formative than representative. Like I said, I'm okay with the Foghorn one since it hadn't appeared on another collection, but it probably should have been the first one. But to be honest, the ones selected for Porky are kind of odd. I guess that's because he was a star first of pretty nondescript cartoons when they're black and white, and then by the color era he basically became a sidekick. So for a solo starring cartoon, Wearing of the Grin should have been a must. For the extras, we have Wagnerian Wabbit about the making of What's Opera Doc that we mentioned before, Twilight in Tune spotlighting the music of Raymond Scott, as in Baby Bottleneck and others, and a montage of the uses of Scott's Powerhouse in Warner Shorts. There's also Putty Problems and Canary Rose about Tweety and Sylvester, The Charm of Snake about Pepe Le Pew, and a Chuck Jones tutorial showing what makes his tunes his. All the cartoons except Hare Tonic, Porky Chops, and Lovelorn Leghorn have commentary tracks as well. Also, a quick note before we go, for the first month of Left Turn at Albuquerque, I got over 500 views, which is pretty good considering I've been doing a podcast for a couple of years, and it took a long time to get to sometimes 100 or 200, let alone in 1 month get 500. So thanks everybody out there for watching. I'll try to keep this up at least monthly as possible. It takes a while to edit these cartoons together. So thanks a lot for watching, and see you next month. Next time, we'll take a look at Disc 2 of the Platinum Collection Volume 1, where we have cartoons with Marvin the Martian, Tasmanian Devil, Witch Hazel, Mark Anthony the Bulldog, and Daydreamer Ralph Phillips, plus a bunch of one-shots. I'm John Hartra. Thanks for watching.